Courtney, where does accountability fit into this for you? What role has that played in you being where you are? And selfishly, I would love for you to tell the six-pack story, because it's a great way to segue into accountability. And I listened to that like 2 times the other day.
Oh, dude,
because that's ultimately how we know each other. Was we were in, technically, I guess you could say, an accountability group.
Yeah,
kind of what it is in a pod, a small group.
Yeah,
which is now something I'm trying to promote in my course and mastermind, is trying to promote people to, get together in these pods and have that small group feel and really hold each other accountable. So, you can kind of take that wherever you want to go, but I want to transition for this last section into accountability.
Yeah, bro. Well, I think it's important that we preface this by saying that, your net worth is your network, isn't it? And, I'm not suggesting for a moment that we all do this for our net worth, okay? But there's a reason that people are listening to your podcast, and it's not because they're interested in growing potatoes, okay? They're generally going to be interested in generating passive income and wealth that's going to help them achieve some lifestyle freedom, like we talked about earlier. And I think it's also important that we recognize that we can use, I think, really 2 things to motivate ourselves to get into action to achieve the goals that we have. We can push against some pain that we have, some pain from childhood, some fear about being broke, trying to prove something to a parent or a spouse or a child, whatever. That's the pain side. And then we have our goals, right? We set some big, lofty goals, and we work towards these things because we want to see our dreams come true. The challenge is pushing against that pain. Sometimes, it's like an elastic band. You get so far down the road and you kind of forget about the pain because you're getting a little bit closer to the goal, but then you lose track of that and it kind of retracts you. And it's almost like you kind of forget, and you're like, well, wait a minute, for 2 months now, I've been operating from this place of pain again. And that doesn't feel so good. And sometimes, you can work towards these goals, but sometimes they can seem just too far off, right? And maybe it's a little bit demotivating. And so we can kind of oscillate between, pain and pleasure, pain and goals. And the way that I've used accountability over the years, Sam, is that I've looked at it as a way to kind of like create a flagpole or almost an anchor somewhere in the middle. Like my lofty goals, they're time tightened. I know when I want these different things to happen, no question. Okay. And I certainly, just like everybody else, have my pain that I push against as well. But sometimes these 2 things can be just a little bit too far away, and I'm in the middle oscillating, maybe a little bit lost. And so I hold accountability as an important anchor in the middle so that I don't get too far one way or the other. And this is a reasonably new concept for me. I mean, as you were around when I learned it, like, gosh, it's going 7 or 8 years ago. But the story is, I was at this time, I was in this accountability group with Sam and some other gentlemen. And we were just going around talking about some goals that we wanted to accomplish. And for me personally, it was at the stage, as I shared with you a moment ago, where I knew that I needed to get my health on point. I had gone through dropping alcohol. I had gone through changing up some friends. I had changed many habits. I had adopted, my practice in the morning, getting to bed earlier, drinking water, exercising, and all that stuff. But I really thought, okay, like, I really want to take my health to another level. And my measure for that was a 6-pack. I mean, I've always been dreaming of this. I mean, I used to play football at about 280. I'm 225 now. And so it kind of big change. And I'd never really been that guy. I thought, okay, that's a good goal. That's a good measuring stick. And I don't know, let's say that this was in May or June. So our friend Adam says, okay, by when? And I'm thinking, damn, son, okay. Well, in my mind, I was like, well, I should easily be able to do it by August. So I say September. And he's like, when? I'm like, all righty then. I think I picked the last day of September 30th or whatever it was. Give myself as much time as possible now that I'm into it with this dude who's calling me on like everything from days to months. And then his next question's like, okay, well then if not what? And I'm like, who is this guy, man? Like, why is he pushing so hard? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking I'm being a baller. I'm like, there's 5 of us, I think at that time. I'll give each of you guys $1,000. So $4,000 out of my pocket. I'm thinking that's a lot of money. And, pardon me for swearing on your podcast, Sam, but I believe Adam's exact words were, that's fucking weak. Make it 100,000. I said, what? He says, yeah, make it 100,000. Like just dead silence, just drops it like that.
There's also a time where, per your previous story, your ego is pretty high during this stage of your life too. So you're like,
and I'm broke, bro. Like, I mean, I had investments. Okay. There's a difference between like being asset, you know, solid and cash poor. Like I was cash poor, bro. And in my head, like I'm being called out by a relatively new friend in front of like 4 other dudes. So what are you going to say? I'm like, okay. Like was the only response I could think of. Meanwhile, in the back of my head, I'm like, how am I going to explain this to my wife? Like this ain't gonna be good at all. Right. And so anyway, time goes on. You know, I don't think that we got to the stage of accountability yet where I'd written the check yet, but I know that we did eventually get to the point where we were like sending cash in the mail, like for accountability. Fortunately, I don't think that we were at that stage, but it was a public declaration. And I have absolutely no doubt that if I didn't show up with a 6-pack, that there wasn't going to be the expectation to come out with $100,000. And I'll tell you what, I've never since then been so motivated to achieve a goal because I'm straight up, like in my head, I'd already spent this $100,000. I needed abs to earn it back. Like that's really what accountability was for me.
Wow.
And so, yeah, man, I mean, I hired a trainer. I was in the gym 5 days a week. Like, don't think for a second that I didn't crush out my diet for those 4 months, right? I mean, I was like best shape ever up to that point. And it really, really worked. And what that lesson taught me, Sam, was that you need friends in your life that are going to make you uncomfortable, not so that they can enjoy it, not so that they can shame you, not so that they can get something out of it, but so that they can help you win. Like we're so accustomed, I think, as human beings to like create comfort for one another. You know, your friend goes on social media and they've had some challenge and you're patting them on the back saying, yes, like, it's like, here, how about you be the friend that says, listen, you know, if you weren't such an asshole, these things wouldn't keep happening to you. Like nobody's saying these things, right? We're thinking it sometimes. Oh, she always finds herself in drama. Like, well, why is nobody helping her not be drama? Or what about your buddy who's constantly finding himself in this sort of situation? You're all around him like, yeah, man, you're right. And nobody's like, bro, like, can we have a chat? Like, I think maybe I can help you with this thing that keeps showing up in your life. Is that a conversation you'd like to have? And these are the types of friends that I found at that time, Sam, you being one of them, and that I've consistently placed in my life strategically since that time. Because here's the thing, guys, like it's a short time that I have here. It's not nearly long enough. Like I couldn't string together 5 lifetimes and do all the things that I can dream of and want to do and impact the lives that I want. And I don't want to waste days. And I'm 48 years old. I got 2 young kids. Like I don't want to waste days with them either. And so if I'm going to be real and maximize all of the things that I want to maximize in the time, I got to remember that sometimes my goals are going to seem too lofty to have me 10 out of 10 driven to achieve them. Sometimes my pain's just going to seem a little bit too far away to push against it. But by golly, if I got some accountability partners here in the middle and they're looking at me saying, hey, Court, check-in today to Friday. Did you do these 2 things that you said you were going to do this week? If not, you know what you got to do. Maybe it's 1,000 push-ups. You know, maybe it's going to be a silly video on social media. I had one of my coaching clients write me a check for $1,000 made out to the person that she dislikes the most. I held it in trust. I had the envelope ready for the person to send it to, and she had to send me daily reports on this thing that she was set to do to avoid my sending this check off to this person. And this is what, Sam, I think friends need to do for each other more, is create an environment where we help one another level up, where we help one another be so accountable to the goals that we've set for ourselves that I'm not going to be the friend to let you down, man. Like, I love you too much to allow that to happen in your life, because I know that you wish your life was going to be 5x as long as it's going to be. And you've got massive gifts inside you. And now I feel responsible as a part of you and your success journey to be around you to help you win. And what a pleasure it is for me to be a guy that can help someone else do that. And in return, I get the same. And together, here we are. Look at us achieving the things that we're achieving and building a better world, a more accountable world, where I think you'll see fewer people standing around pointing and more people standing around taking responsibility. To me, that's just critical. Like, take ownership, have accountability, look inward and say, hey, what's my piece in this? How can I be better to affect better outcomes for those around me? And I think that's what accountability does.